What's going on, everyone? So, Houston, they ended up losing Fred Vanvleet for the season. Did a whole video earlier on kind of my thoughts with Houston and then tied into the Lakers, how Lakers should kind of monitor and keep an eye on the situation. Talked about how, guys like Gabe Vincent, kind of like, a downgrade to a Fred VanVleet, but very, very similar type of players, right? Guy that can be that initiator, 3-and-D style guard for you, guy that has playoff experience, guy that, was the third best player, a mini night second best player in a finals run, kind of could fit in and play that Fred VanVleet role for the Houston Rockets, but also is an expiring contract to where, Houston can make that trade, make that move. They have a ton of guys that we could use, right? From, Clint Capella to just wing depth and Tari East and something. You're not going to get like one of the higher end guys for that. Even if they do start to get desperate, you might be able to get, a better quality deal, but you're not going to get like, Jabari Smith or anything like that, even if they are desperate for Gabe Vincent. But it could make some sense for a Houston team to go like, hey, we can bring in like a Gabe Vincent, because you got to keep in mind, Houston has no way to fill Fred VanVleet's role right now in any way. So they're going to lean very heavily into Reed Shepherd and stuff like that. And if they start to sink here a little bit, there could be some desperation, or even just, hey, it'd be good to get a guy like a Gabe Vincent or something like that around the trade deadline, because you got to keep in mind most of the players that Lakers could probably land from Houston, they just signed, so we wouldn't be able to trade for them till closer to the trade deadline. Some guys would be in December, some guys would be in January, but point is, you'd be looking closer to the trade deadline, but that's fine, right? If you're the Lakers, you're kind of going into the season, seeing what's available, seeing what maybe moves you can make and what deals you can get done. And then Houston, same thing. Can they kind of get through? Are they good? Because I even talked about, I think Reed Shepherd could potentially raise the ceiling a little higher for Houston, kind of went in depth in that. But check out that video, because I went more in depth on the Houston side of things in that video and tied it into the Lakers, of course, because it's a Laker channel. But as far as like trades with the Lakers, right? One option could be Austin Reaves. Now, a couple things before I dive into this. One, I don't think the Lakers necessarily are going to want to trade Austin Reaves, but you go into the season, because like I said, you have to wait anyway. Go into the season, if Houston starts to get a little desperate, right, and they can use a guy, or maybe they just look at it and they just go, man, Austin Reaves could be that playmaker, be that young kind of piece for us. Fred VanVleet's kind of getting older and older and now just suffered this injury. Austin Reaves could give us a little more long-term stability, guy that can be that playmaker, play on ball, play off ball, do whatever for you, right? So Houston's a team that I definitely would keep an eye on, period, for the Austin Reaves, whether it's a trade this season or maybe a sign and trade in the offseason. But if you're the Lakers, you want to see first, like, does that work, right? What if Austin Reaves, Luka Doncic, and LeBron James are a little clunky? We saw in the playoffs, Austin Reaves essentially getting relegated to just being a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, right? His three-point attempts he almost averaged 10 attempts a game. He went up like 2.5 attempts a game from regular season to the playoffs. So he's a guy that's really kind of just, we've seen kind of get relegated at times to just that catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, but that's not really his game, right? Like, he can play off ball, play on ball, but he's best with the ball in his hands, making decisions, being aggressive, attacking defenses, creating that dribble penetration. He's the Luka light, right? He's the wish Luka for this Lakers team. But if that turns out that's not exactly what we need, or maybe you could now maybe get, a guy like a Jabari Smith or something like that, where it's like, oh, we got a long-term kind of foundation piece that maybe is a better fit, that makes more sense alongside a team like or a player like Luka Doncic, that could be something that you could really look for. But again, a couple things have to play out. Houston, how do they look? What are their thoughts? What are they thinking? And then, of course, the Lakers, kind of them working out, their side of things. How does Austin kind of fit into all these things? Because what if he's just really good? What if he is, my concern isn't really the regular season, it's more the postseason, the playoffs. But like, what if he is? What if he has a really good season and it's like, okay, like let's take the risk. We can always sign and trade him, right? Do you really kind of break it up if he's really good? And then, you can always, there's always going to be a team that's interested in Austin Reaves, so maybe you make that move next season, off season. But like I said, if Houston starts to kind of show a little desperation. They're starting to slip in the standings a little bit, or Reed Shepherd isn't quite what you need him to be, or they're not really able to fill in that gap of Fred VanVleet. They might look to a guy like an Austin Reaves or like I said, a Gabe Vincent. But now the problem with trading Austin Reaves right now, right? Because there's a lot of people that want Austin Reaves traded. I talk about it all the time, right? There's kind of these two camps, right? Like, I like Austin Reaves. I know I kind of get labeled an Austin Reaves hater, but it's not. It's just I'm honest in assessing him, right? Like, when he's really good, I talk about how he's really good. When he's really bad, I talk about how he's really bad. I do it for everybody. I've made, again, videos around this channel. I've talked about LeBron. I've talked about Anthony Davis, right? Like, you name it, I've talked about him and their poor play. I even criticized Luka on a couple occasions, right? Even with him being new in, the certain circumstances. Again, if it's warranted, get criticism. I try to be as fair as possible. But you get these two camps where it's like, Austin Reaves is my GOAT, right? Like, he's the greatest player ever. Oh my gosh, right? And then you get this other camp that's like, he's trash, trade him for a bag of chips. Why is he even on our team? Just buy him out and release him. And it's like, whoa, like, I have no problems trading Austin Reaves either, but like, slow it down, right? Because he is a good player, right? I think he is a very good player. I think he's a guy that could make a real impact on a lot of teams, including this Lakers team, right? I even think that there is a version of Luka Doncic, Austin Reaves that can win championships if you have the right complementary players and pieces around them and depth and all that stuff. So, it's just, again, there's a lot that you need to see and kind of figure out, and you don't have a couple years to figure it out, right? You got like this season, and then Austin Reaves is a free agent. But one of the issues with trading Austin Reaves is he's so cheap, right? It's great when you're keeping him and you got him on that long-term contract in the first couple years, right? Because it's like, man, you got a really good player who's worth more. You got one of the best, value contracts in all of basketball. But then when the time comes to now make that decision again, and now he's no longer going to be that value and maybe even be overpaid, now the question of like, do we trade him or do we not presents itself. He's so cheap, you can't go and get a high-end piece, right? So, like, for example, if you could go get a Trey Murphy right now, I would personally swap Trey Murphy for Austin Reaves if I had to, but you can't. So you'd have to trade Austin Reaves plus, a Rui Hachimura or something like that, right? Like some of these guys like that you think of, Jalen Suggs, who would just be beautifully slotted in, or, like some of these guys that just would fit seamlessly alongside a Luka Doncic, they're priced out. It's Austin Reaves plus a Rui Hachimura plus a Dalton Connect just to get, to a contract. Like now it just starts to become, okay, is he worth Austin Reaves? Okay, maybe, but is he worth Austin Reaves, Rui Hachimura? And that, it starts to become an issue, right? Well, just so happens, Houston has players that we need, that you could argue are better fits, that actually line up with Austin Reaves' contract even right now, and you might even be able to get some assets in the deal as well. Could you maybe get a first or something in the deal as well, right? Couple things boil down, right? One, how desperate does Houston become? Right? If they clearly need, like, hey, we badly need a playmaker, whatnot, because they heavily leaned into two-way, long, versatile wings, right? Like, they have, 14 guys on the roster that are all just, long, athletic, versatile wings, right? They leaned fully into that. But they also kind of shortened on the guard play because, Fred VanVleet and all that stuff. So now they're kind of in this weird position. So I don't necessarily think it'll be an issue for Houston to the point of desperation, but you also don't know, right? If they're not looking very good and, they're having their struggles and they're, because Fred VanVleet does a lot for that team. Not just on-court production, but just being that leader and that veteran in the locker room and a guy that has that experience. And, he brings a lot to that team. So if they start getting in that place of desperation, they might be more willing to give up some assets and do some things to land a guy like Austin Reaves, who would be a higher tier guy, who also could be a problem solver for you for now and the future, right? Could be a guy that kind of solves a lot of needs, because it's like, how much longer are you going to have, Kevin Durant, right? It's like, okay, well, Luka Doncic, how much longer are you going to have Fred VanVleet, right? Like, having an Austin Reaves kind of would give you that guy that you kind of have long-term in place of Fred VanVleet, or play alongside Fred VanVleet, or, in a post-KD era, you can kind of shift guys down and Austin Reaves kind of play the one or the two. give you some flexibility in that regard. Could you maybe now get a Jabari Smith plus some stuff, right? Could you maybe get, one of these kind of younger guys that really kind of make some sense for the Lakers? You kind of go through the players and whatnot, right? Like, again, like I talked about, like with the Gabe Vincent, Clint Capella's making 6.7. Could you do something where you get like a Clint Capella and like a Tari Eason, right? It's like million difference. You might have to get a third team, maybe send Dalton Connect somebody or something like that, and then do like a Gabe for Dalton Connect swap. But you got a backup center and you got a legit 3-and-D wing, right? Maybe they do something like that if you were going to go that route. But if not, could you maybe go get, if you were to trade an Austin Reaves, could you maybe get some of these, like I said, higher end guys? Could you maybe even get like a Reed Shepherd? Jabari Smith is making $12.3 million. So, or, could you get like Jabari Smith and like say a Jayshawn Tate, right? Like get you a veteran kind of 3-and-D wing with that young piece, and then, maybe get an asset or something. And it just, now, like a team like Houston, they have several guys that are young, cheap, athletic, kind of solve what you need. And guys like a Jayshawn Tate could slot into the 2 or the 3 for you, right? And give you what you need alongside of LeBron and Luka Doncic, right? And then if you get a Reed Shepherd or something like that, or, get a Jabari Smith, maybe Jabari is the guy that's slotting up 3, and then you have, like a Tate at the 2 with Luka, LeBron, and DeAndre. You got some athleticism, you got some shooting, right? You got some versatility on the defense side, you got some length. Right? Like, again, to me, it's how desperate does Houston become, and can the Lakers kind of work this out? But, we'll see. We'll see how this kind of progresses. Just kind of a thought, because, again, if the Lakers were to trade Austin Reaves, there's very few scenarios that I think it makes sense because of how cheap Austin Reaves is. Houston's one of the few teams I think that has the players that could make sense for a Lakers trade for like an Austin Reaves. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.